Hello and welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. Guys, we got a great show for you lined up today. I'm going to be interviewing Tyler O'Neill. He's the managing editor of the Daily Signal and also the author of Making Hate Pay. We'll talk about that book as well. He goes off on the ACLU, so we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But the reason I brought Tyler on is because you guys know, listen, this week has been actually the last couple of weeks have been an absolute disaster for Biden's reelection campaign. After the debate, it's been a total debacle. You have Democrats that have done their best to try to get the man out of office, to pressure him to leave the White House, to resign. That hasn't worked. He's dug in his heels, and then you've seen the storm seemingly calm, at least in the public's eye. But I don't think it has underneath the surface. Nancy Pelosi comes out, says some weird things, and then in an interview, George Clooney came out with an op-ed in the New York Times talking about it's time for Biden to go, as if he didn't know or he's a little late to the party. Biden was, during his fundraiser, was the same Biden that he saw in the debate, yet he waited until now to pen an op-ed. But here's what gets me. Every couple of years, or every 4 years at least, but usually every couple of years, the Democrat Party, they come out with some type of story that's racist. There was Michael Brown and Ferguson. There was Trayvon Martin right here in Central Florida. Obviously, the George Floyd riots. So every election cycle, Democrats try to racialize the election cycle to keep Black people and to keep minorities voting for them. And so this is why I have my guests on, because it's pretty strange. Since Biden has been getting beat up by his own party, they chose a different tact, a different way of lashing out. They decided to go after the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, and they're trying to scare Black people all across the country. So Tyler O'Neill, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Tyler, listen, I'd like to get your take on this, obviously, because just like I said, every couple of years, the Democrat Party tries to scare minorities. And now since they don't have a George Floyd this year, right now, I guess Project 2025 is the latest George Floyd. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So Project 2025, they're selling it as an attack on democracy. My favorite, I wrote a fact check on this because I thought it had to be said. The Biden campaign released a document saying that Project 2025 terminates the Constitution, which could not be further from the truth. I mean, if you actually look at the way our government works today, it doesn't work the way it's supposed to in the Constitution. Project 2025 is trying to make it work more like it should under the Constitution. And so Biden has flipped the truth exactly on its head. But yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on, and we saw this to this day. I think the worst lie about Donald Trump is this idea that he said that neo-Nazis and white supremacists are very fine people. Because if you watch the actual clip of what he said, he very clearly said, and I mean, this is something even Snopes has finally acknowledged, that he was not talking about those people because they're evil and should be condemned totally, he said. But then he said, there are some people who don't want to remove all the Confederate monuments, who might think that some of the Confederates, like Robert E. Lee, for instance, might not need to be damnatio memoriae, expunged from our public consciousness. And I mean, he's my favorite one to talk about, because here's a man who actually fought to bring the Union back together after the Civil War. Robert E. Lee did. And so I believe, I'll talk till I'm blue in the face about the justness of the Union cause. But when it comes to, removing our history, that's controversial for a reason. And the left is portraying that as something evil. And then they're taking Trump's words and twisting it. And I went through CNN's fact check of the debate. CNN essentially did an opinion check on Trump. They said, yes, right. Trump did say, he wasn't talking about the white nationalists and he wasn't talking about the neo-Nazis, but we know that there was nobody at Charlottesville except for the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists. So therefore, he was still saying that they're fine people. And it's like CNN tries to even things for Biden. But yeah, I mean, as we're talking, we just had news that the first Democratic senator, someone in the U.S. Senate, has called for Biden to drop out of the race. And so he is facing a very serious scandal regarding his mental state. And so Democrats are going after Project 2025 with flat out lies to distract from the dumpster fire on their side of the aisle.
And I'm going to get into some of the more of your arguments. You wrote a column, fact check, does Project 2025 terminate the Constitution? And you go over the 5 biggest whoppers. I'd like to get into every single one of those. And then just to respond to that Charlottesville lie, Joy Reid of MSNBC, even after the Snopes fact check, Tyler, came out and just basically reiterated the whole story as if the Snopes, account never came out. And quite frankly, you can go back and listen to the audio and see that that is a complete and utter lie. And I believe this media, the mainstream media, has absolutely disgraced themselves with, I think, what's going to turn out to be perhaps one of the biggest cover-ups ever in American history with this Joe Biden saga, with his mental state. I mean, I think anybody with a modicum of common sense, especially those of us on the right, I mean, I've been saying ever since he was running for a reelection, this guy has dementia. And now they're finally discovering the light and they want to throw him overboard.
Yeah, I think, and it's ironic to call it a cover-up because it's been there in plain sight this whole time.
Fair.
I mean, they've always said, "Oh, these are cheap fakes" or whatever, and I'm like, no, these are videos showing, and there's scary videos. Like we should be laughing about it because it's insane, but it's also scary for the country. Like here we have the guy who is in the Oval Office, who has his finger on the nuclear button, and he's barely there. He's not, as Victor Davis Hanson says, he's not compos mentis. And you see these videos of him standing next to other heads of state, and he's like keeling over for no reason. And he's making faces that really suggest to me that something is not going on right in his head. And that's a problem. Like I saw Chip Roy came out and said that Kamala Harris needs to invoke the 25th Amendment. And Chip Roy is no fan of Kamala Harris.
Sure.
He doesn't want to see her, and I really don't want to see her being our first Black woman president. I mean, talk about an insult. But like Chip Roy, on principle, I believe, said, look, our country needs a president who is compos mentis. And even if it is the cackling hyena who is often referred to as Madam Vice President, like that's still better in terms of like where the country is, perhaps, than having a almost a decaying corpse. I mean, Joy Reid, you brought her up. The other day, she said she would vote for Biden in a coma over Donald Trump to keep Hitler out the White House. And I'm like, how insane are you? We don't want a weekend at Bernie's a president. And especially, and it's also like, look, we lived through 4 years of Donald Trump. Find me one Jew who was rounded up for being a Jew. Find me one, like, the insanity of comparing Trump to these people. It just boggles my mind. And you can disagree with Trump. He said things that a lot of people didn't like, but he also did a lot of good things that people did like. And our lives were concretely better during his presidency than they are now. And she can call him Hitler until she's blue in the face, but Americans know the truth.
Yeah, and we only have a minute left in this block, but if I could just quickly go back to Kamala Harris, to me, it's the epitome of racism to put Kamala Harris in the position that she's in, only because she happens to be a Black female, all the while that she's not competent to serve as vice president, and you definitely don't want her as president. But I would say you're right. I think she would be better than both a dementia patient, in my opinion, and also a crackhead allegedly running the White House. So I think that says a lot about the Democrat Party and how racist they are. 30 seconds to respond, Tyler.
Yeah, well, she's the epitome of a DEI hire. She got her role because she's a black woman. And, I was scared of Kamala Harris for a long time because back when she was playing the mean one, when she was prosecuting the case against conservative Christians, demonizing us day in and day out, I thought she had fire, and I was not happy to see her rise in status.
Right.
But as soon as she became vice president, it was all bubbly. It was all fake. It was all like, it was as though the woman who I knew as Kamala Harris had been replaced by a 5-year-old girl who, just says the same thing over and over again.
It's amazing. Listen, I'm speaking to my guest, Tyler O'Neill. He's the managing editor of the Daily Signal. We'll be back to talk more about Project 2025. Hello and welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. I'm joined by my guest, Tyler O'Neill. He's the managing editor of the Daily Signal, also the author of Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And he's here with me to talk about Project 2025. As I mentioned before the break, that the left is doing their best to try to create a new boogeyman this election cycle. They are completely panicked and terrified that Joe Biden is going to take the entire Democrat Party down with the ship, so to speak. And so they have to find boogeyman. And so their latest boogeyman is Project 2025. And they want to get a lot of people scared, especially blacks. You may have heard that black talk show hosts, black radio stations are playing up, Project 2025, spreading all the lies that the Biden administration is telling them and trying to get black people up in an uproar that if Donald Trump gets reelected, he's going to implement this Project 2025. He's distanced himself from Project 2025, but I'm here to tell you that Project 2025 isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing because it empowers Americans. I mean, it's as simple as that over the bureaucracy. So I'm here with my guest, Tyler O'Neill, to continue with the conversation. I do want to say before we go on and remind you that today's show is brought to you in part by Priority Gold. Economists warn that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA or your 401k accounts as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise and global uncertainty looming, it's clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold. In times like this, Proverbs 21:20 reminds us to preserve what we built. Right now, the wisdom points us towards gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, time to make it a priority. My name is Carl Jackson, and I urge you to call my friends at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you diversify your savings with physical gold and silver. Call 1-800-405-GOLD or visit PriorityGold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Call 1-800-405-GOLD to speak with a gold specialist or visit PriorityGold.com/golden to learn more, or 1-800-405-GOLD. Okay, back to my guest. Again, Tyler O'Neill of the Daily Signal, managing editor of the Daily Signal, and again, author of Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. He's here to talk about Project 2025. Again, the left is trying to demonize Project 2025. Tyler, just briefly, give us a synopsis of what Project 2025 is.
Yeah, so Project 2025 is trying to claw back the power that has been wrested from Congress and the president by the administrative state. We have a fourth branch of government in this country that writes most of the laws that Americans have to live by. And these are called regulations, but in effect, they're the laws that Congress should be passing, but instead have been shifted over to the administrative state, to the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy, meanwhile, also has a complicated system that keeps bureaucrats in place, even if they are opposing the will of the sitting president of the United States, which is why we've seen a deep state under former President Trump, why we've actually seen a similar deep state under Biden when it comes to Israel. There's been a mass, revolt against Biden's own policies on Israel from within the ranks of the bureaucracy. And so what Project 2025 is, it's a comprehensive plan to equip a common sense president to strip away some of the abuses that the deep state has to make the fourth branch of government back into an accountable part of the second branch of government under the president of the United States, which is where it technically is. And the interesting thing is, Biden is saying that this is getting rid of democratic checks and balances. But Carl, you hit the nail right on the head, because you said Project 2025 is about empowering the people. And that's exactly right. Because what these checks and balances that Biden is standing for are, they're actually technocratic checks and balances. They're protecting bureaucrats from the will of the people as expressed in their elected representatives through Congress and through the presidency. So Biden says Project 2025 is about making the bureaucracy less accountable to the people. The exact opposite is the case. And by making the bureaucracy more accountable to the president, then we actually will have an administrative state that follows the wishes of the person elected by the people. And of course, there will still be checks and balances from the Congress and from the Supreme Court. I mean, the idea that this is getting rid of checks and balances is absurd, because it is just strengthening under the president the actual executive branch. But, Congress still has the ultimate authority to make laws. The Supreme Court still has the ultimate authority to decide in disputes about what the law means. And, the president should have authority in his ability to carry out the laws of the country, to execute the laws, the executive branch. He should be able to have everybody under him responding to him and working with him, not against him.
And this makes perfect sense for all of the people on the left that says, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. I'm not even sure if they know what the term means, but nonetheless, they say that, Donald Trump, Republicans, so on, or et cetera, are a threat to democracy. And I'm thinking, you know what, if you really believe that, then you would want Project 2025. Why would you want a bunch of unelected bureaucrats that circumvent the will of the people? And this is what I want people to understand here, Tyler. These bureaucrats, literally, we go out and vote. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. You go out, you vote for a president. There's the executive branch, there's the legislative branch, there's the judicial branch. Those are your checks and balances. So what Project 2025 is saying is, let's stick to those checks and balances, not a bunch of unelected bureaucrats that'll end up running our lives, making laws that none of us get to vote for. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, Black, white, Latino, Asian, it doesn't matter. As Americans, this is something that we should all want: smaller government, because we're no longer empowered. If these people that we don't know, we don't vote for, we don't elect, get to have say so in our lives and have power over us, when the Constitution was specifically written so that we could have power over them. I just wanted to get on that rant, Tyler, and you've been breaking this down beautifully. But I can't stand what the left does, especially, frankly, with people in my own community, and just try to scare the crap out of us and keep us basically in servitude to the Democrat Party, when truly what Project 2025 does is unleash every American, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, and what we're seeing in the country right now is a growing backlash against the technocracy, a growing, rejection of the woke ideology that our elites are pushing on us, and a growing segment of business owners, particularly minority business owners, who are waking up and smelling the freedom and saying, "Look, we're being oppressed by this red tape, by these regulations. We should not be following the same party that keeps giving us more bureaucracy and making it harder for us to make a living and achieve the American dream." And this awakening is happening. And I think, Trump has been he's been the strongest Republican in recent memory at actually courting minority voters and saying, "Look, you've been sold a bag of goods when it comes to politics. And the Democrats are just thinking you need to line up and vote for them. And, they can rely on you. I actually want your vote, and I'm going to listen to you and say, look, you can have a choice. You don't have to fall in line the way that they always claim you have to. And I think that's a powerful message that he delivered, and I think he's getting more support. And frankly, that's another reason why they're scared and why they're pushing this narrative.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the tactics that the Biden election campaign feels like they have to use to prove to their Democratic colleagues, if you will, that, hey, we can somehow get back the black vote, and we can do it by trying to scare the bejeebers out of the black vote once again, so they'll run back to the Democrat Party. But unfortunately for them, black people, they, just like any other American, we like being able to pay for our gas and afford it, groceries and afford it. And we're having a hard time under the Biden administration. So it's not working out well. And I suspect this won't. I suspect this won't either. We only have a minute left in this block, but I want to make sure that we go through every single one of these lies, or the biggest whoppers that Biden is telling. You talked about terminating the Constitution. The left is saying that this will give Trump more power over your daily life. In about 30 seconds, let's get started on that, and then we'll bring you back on the other side to finish it up.
Yeah, I think that one's super easy. I mean, restraining the federal bureaucracy will do the opposite of giving Trump power over your daily life. Like, this is enabling, this is pulling back the government from your daily life. And that's the entire point of Project 2025, is to make the government have less control. So where they're getting this idea, it boggles my mind.
Yeah. It absolutely does. Okay, guys, we'll be back with more. Again, I'm speaking to Tyler O'Neill. He's the managing editor of the Daily Signal and author of Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. We'll be back in a few to wrap this up. You're listening to The Carl Jackson Show. See you soon. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Today's show is brought to you in part by MyPillow.com. You guys know that Mike Lindell and MyPillow, they've been canceled by the box stores, some of these shopping television shows as well. The good news is Mike wants to share these savings, or give you a bunch of savings, if you will, with this new deal, this $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, you guys may know he started with one product, but thanks to his loyal employees, he now has hundreds of products. And he's got this $25 extravaganza going on. You can get the two-pack multi-use My Pillows are just $25. The My Pillow sandals are $25. They have a six-pack towel set that's $25. A brand new four-pack of dish towel set. You guessed it, that's $25. And for the first time ever, the premium My Pillows with the all-new Giza fabric is just $25 as well. All you have to do is go to the radio listener square at the top of mypillow.com. Click on that square, enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Again, mypillow.com, promo code Carl. Take advantage of the $25 extravaganza. All right, now, back to my guest, Tyler O'Neill, managing editor of the Daily Signal and author of the book, Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. All right, so we just have this block remaining here, Tyler. So I want to get through all of the hate from the Biden administration on Project 2025 and give the people as much information as possible. You've explained what Project 2025 is. You debunked this notion that it terminates the Constitution and that it'll give Trump more power over your daily life. In fact, it'll give the people more power over our own lives. But you also say that it guts Democratic checks and balances. At least that's what Biden is saying. It guts Democratic checks and balances. We've kind of spoken to this, but delve into that a little more, please.
Yeah. So as we talked in the previous segment, the checks and balances on the president's power that Project 2025 guts are only the technocratic checks and balances, the arcane rules that prevent the president from firing people who refuse to do their job or fail to do their job in the bureaucracy. That's what Project 2025 is focused on. It is actually about empowering the democratic checks and balances over the administrative state, the democratic check and balance of the president's authority and his will, the democratic check and balance of Congress in being able to, defund and move against these agencies that have abused their power. And, through them, and this is not as directly democratic, but still the judicial branch's ability to adequately decide, to call balls and strikes when it comes to the bureaucracy. We actually had a really great Supreme Court ruling this term striking down Chevron deference in Loper Bright. And that is monumental for allowing the courts once again to judge between disputes that involve these agencies. So these agencies no longer get a blank check to run roughshod over the American people.
Yeah, I mean, again, that the case Chevron deference being overturned, just astronomical, a big deal, a huge deal, as a matter of fact. And again, returning power to the people. I mean, this is so basic. It frustrates me, Tyler, because it just goes to show you how a lot of our government schools, if you will, public school education, I mean, just no basic knowledge of the Constitution. It's amazing how easily Democrats are able to scare people away from their rights, where they run to the Democratic Party instead of to the Bill of Rights, if you will, or to their God-given rights. It's fascinating to me, the concept that you shouldn't, or the executive branch, the president, shouldn't be able to fire people. We pay for those people. I mean, we work hard to pay for those people. Why should we pay their salaries? We get fired if we do a bad job, but they can't.
Yeah. Well, and that's the basic thing about this. And we even saw, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the guy who came up with the New Deal, essentially created the bureaucratic state. Even he said that it was unjust for there to be public sector unions where they would protect the government workers, who are supposed to be public servants, by the way, from the from the people's elected representatives who have power over them. And what Franklin Delano Roosevelt said was, you put people in a horrible situation where if these public servants are supposed to strike to negotiate for better wages, they have to strike against the people and against their will. And it's like and he was right. I'm not usually a fan of FDR, but he was 100% right on this. And we've seen these government unions, that direct most of their money to the Democratic Party. Imagine that. And all the unions that have hung on in the past few decades. I mean, union membership is generally down, but the unions that do exist are corrupt organs of the Democratic Party, funneling money to Democrats and funneling people's money when they don't know it to these left-wing causes that are pushing, there are all these interest groups that are pushing their agendas in the administrative state. They have connections. It's ironic to have the left go crazy about Project 2025 when Project 2025 is the right's long overdue response to the corrupt system we see right now in the left, where the elites on the left are funding the pressure groups that are pushing the administrative state further and further in radical directions against the will of the people. And now we actually have conservatives standing up and saying, no, we're going to fight back on this. The left has had its Project 2025. They've had their Project 2025 for 60 years.
Man, great point.
That's a
great point. I hadn't even thought about it in those terms, but you're absolutely right. We only have a few minutes left with you. Again, I'm speaking to my guest, Tyler O'Neill, managing editor of the Daily Signal and also author of the book, Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Okay, so here's some of the things, recommendations that were in the 2025 project. Restore the integrity of the Department of Justice to ensure accountability by giving the FBI a hard rest, ensuring consistent litigation decisions, and enforcing immigration laws. I've got three that I want to mention, so maybe within a minute, if you could speak to each one of these points.
Yeah, so what we're talking about there is rooting out corruption at the FBI. I mean, we've seen the FBI cite none other than the Southern Poverty Law Center, which I wrote a book about because it makes its money by demonizing mainstream conservatives and Christians, putting them on a map with chapters of the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, you couldn't get more divisive and, quite frankly, evil than that. But that's the people that the FBI thinks are reliable and they should be citing to go after Americans for the sin of disagreeing with the left. You also mentioned there, what were the other two?
Solidify our border by restructuring the Department of Homeland Security is one.
Yes. So the border is an absolute crisis. We've seen more than 10 million illegal aliens enter this country. And it seems as though the Democrats really do want to replace the Americans who live here, who abide by the law, and frankly, the immigrants who come here legally and actually honor our laws. They want to replace them with all these people who they want them to vote. I mean, we've seen this week most Democrats voting against the SAVE Act, which all it does is say that in order to vote, you should be able to prove your citizenship legally. I mean, they call it a conspiracy theory. They act as though it's racist. It's not racist. I don't give a crap what the skin color is. The Iranian who is coming from the number one state sponsor of terrorism is white, right? And that person is a far bigger danger in my book than the Nigerian Christian who's coming from.
Good point.
This has nothing to do with race. This is all about the security of our country and the integrity of our laws, and restructuring DHS to make sure that we follow the law on the border it's an existential issue for our country right now.
Absolutely. And they even talk about, or you guys even talk about, streamlining the immigration process. Only 30 seconds left here. The last thing, break up the Department of Education to strengthen education freedom, enhance parental rights in education, and protect taxpayers from student loan forgiveness. What's racist about that, Tyler? 30 seconds.
Nothing at all. And in fact, we've seen critical race theory galvanize many Indian American and other minority, many Black Americans who are just like, we're fed up with this nonsense idea that because of the color of our skin, we're inherently oppressed and we need to be treated as other than, as different from. And, the promise of America is to be judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin. Mm-hmm. And this ideology is flipping that on its head.
Absolutely. All right. We'll have to leave it there. Again, Tyler O'Neill of the Daily Signal, author of Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you. All right. Welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Tyler O'Neill. And guys, listen, Project 2025 isn't anything to fear. And for those of us on the right, we know that. We know that. But the left is going to do whatever they can to freak the minority communities out. That's exactly what they do. It's all about fear and anger. You guys notice that Democrats have nothing. They have nothing. Biden has nothing to show for his administration except wars, quite frankly, inflation, increased crime. As a matter of fact, he has so little or nothing to show that's been done during his administration that he literally has to take credit for something that former President Trump did, and that is making NATO pay their fair share when it comes to paying the bills and paying for their own defense systems. Let's go ahead and listen to video clip number 2. Por favor, Gabe.
In the year 2020, the year I was elected president, only 9 NATO allies are spending 2% of their defense and GDP on defense. This year, 23 will spend at least 2%.
Okay, now here's what you have to understand. NATO wasn't paying their fair share before former President Donald Trump demanded that they did. Now that they're concerned or freaked out that Vladimir Putin could potentially encroach on their territory, now they're willing to pay up. All right. But it was Trump that led the way. And obviously, what Joe Biden has to do is try to take credit for what Donald Trump was able to accomplish during his administration. Because let's be real, no one's concerned, no one's scared, no one's afraid, whether it's our adversaries or our allies. No one's concerned about Joe Biden. Now, here's what I want to turn to real quickly. I want you to. There's not a lot of enthusiasm out there for Joe Biden. I mean, let's be real. I mean, his party wants to kick him out. They want him gone. But I want you to see this enthusiasm. This is what happened earlier this week in Doral, Florida, at another Trump rally. Now, I understand that these are Trump supporters. These are ardent Trump supporters. But more and more people are starting to flock to what they consider this movement, this MAGA movement under Donald Trump. And meanwhile, Democrats are running away from Joe Biden. I got some new polls that I want to share with you. 6 states have shifted toward the GOP. We'll talk about that after we roll video clip number 3, Gabe. Okay, now you guys may recall that in Joe Biden's interview with George Stephanopoulos, basically that was a hit job, in my opinion. That was a pressure campaign like nobody's business on live television, even though it was a taped interview. But you can recall that Joe Biden tried to brag about the crowds that he got over the last weekend in Philadelphia. Attended some black churches, and so George Stephanopoulos rightly called him out. This is in Doral, Florida. I live in Florida. Some of you guys may or may not know that. Guys, it is hot as bejeebers out here right now. So to see people continue to gather and this momentum to continue to carry, I'm telling you, the Democrat Party has to be terrified. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but if the polls today remain, then it looks like Trump could take this thing away. So let's hope that is the case. I want to go on because I want you to know what you're up against. Earlier this week, the SAVE Act, which requires proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections, passed the House, but it only passed 221 to 198. All but 5 Democrats voted against the bill, making it clear that Democrats want illegal aliens to vote. Let's go ahead and roll the clip. Por favor, Gabe.
Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? On this vote, the yeas are 221, the nays are 198. The bill is passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
See, Democrats can't vote. They don't want you to vote on their merit. They don't want you to vote for what they've done. This is why they want to bring in illegal aliens. These are your replacements. I know the people talk conspiracy theory. Guys, it's obvious what the left is trying to do. They want a perpetual underclass. They want more people that they can control. They want a society of have and have-nots, and they'll rob you in order to give benefits to illegals. As a matter of fact, New York City Mayor Eric Adams has done that in the last week, doubling the amount of illegal aliens that are going to get funded by the city to be able to have these debit cards and pay for food and pay for housing, despite the fact that they broke in to our country. This is absolutely insane. And so you know what you're up against with the Democrat Party. This is a party that does not respect their voters. They don't respect you. That's for sure. And I think they're showing that to us with votes like this when they're voting against the SAVE Act. It makes no sense. If they're for closing or sealing the border, why would they vote against the SAVE Act, where illegals can vote in our elections? That makes no sense whatsoever. Democrats are running scared. Here's Representative Jennifer McClellan. This is video clip number 5. I want to play this real quickly for you. Here's what she has to say about requiring people to provide proof of U.S. citizenship to vote in our U.S. elections.
This bill is essentially a poll tax because I am not aware of a single proof of citizenship document that does not cost an individual money to get it, unless we are requiring every state to provide one for free, and then it's an unfunded mandate. This is the 2024 version of the Jim Crow poll tax, and we should vote against it.
Isn't it amazing that the party that created the KKK, the party that implemented Jim Crow laws across the South, are the ones that are talking about the poll tax, especially when it comes to citizens that are illegal? Let me tell you what they're doing. And we talked about this earlier with our guest, Tyler O'Neill. The Democrats need a new boogeyman. They can't run on merit. They can't run on their record. I mean, the economy is shot. They've weaponized the DOJ. They've censored Americans. Illegal immigration is insane. Inflation is out of control. Our military has gone woke, have bowed down to cultural Marxism. We're no longer energy independent because of Joe Biden's leadership. Russia invaded Ukraine. Hamas invaded Israel. This is the legacy of Joe Biden's administration. And so Democrats can't talk about that. And so they want to demonize. That's all they can do is demonize. Well, here's some news for you. This broke earlier this week. This from the Washington Examiner. 6 states are shifting towards the GOP in wake of Biden nominee angst. This according to the Cook Political Report. Here's the summary. The Electoral College ratings for 6 states have shifted towards Republicans and former President Donald Trump's favor, as the fate of President Joe Biden's political future as the Democrats' nominee remains on shifting sands. Now, Joe Biden is doing everything he can. I should say Hunter Biden and Joe Biden as well. They're doing everything they can to hold on. Meanwhile, what the left wants to do is try to distract you from the I guess, open secret, or what I call a cover-up, or one of the greatest cover-ups. Now, we all knew that it was an open secret that Joe Biden has been has lacked the cognitive skills to be in the White House, or cognitive ability to be in the White House this entire time. And these people try to say, don't believe what's in front of your lying eyes. Well, now they're paying the price. After the debate, things have just continued to get worse for the Democrat Party. According to the Cook Political Report, 3 states have shifted from toss up to lean Republican. All right, so those states are Arizona, Georgia, Nevada. We're talking swing states, guys. And then you got 2 other states that have shifted, Minnesota and New Hampshire, from likely to lean Democrat. See, Democrats are looking at this and they are quaking in their boots. Why? Because they thought that they would run away with this thing. They thought that they could lock up the former president of the United States. They thought that they could put him through all of these sham trials, just like they did with the impeachment hoax, or the Ukraine impeachment hoax, the Russia collusion hoax. And they thought they would basically eliminate Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden would be able to shuffle into the White House because he's not able to walk clearly. All right. So they thought he would be able to shuffle back into the White House. They would be able to turn this thing right over to Kamala Harris. And it's all blown up in their face as a result of one debate performance where nearly 50 million people were able to see Joe Biden's mouth agape and see that the guy is completely, or has dementia, more than likely. Right. So the Democrats are panicked because now they're having to compete in areas they never thought they would have to, all because of one debate. Don't forget how these people have destroyed the economy and tried to destroy our lives in the last 4 years when you go to vote on November 5th. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to the Carl Jackson Show. Don't grow weary doing good.